Hi, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Boss versus Coach. So, here we are with another hard hitting and exciting episode. And today we are going to speak about being present. We live in a world where we woke up to an alarm, we check on the phone before we check on ourselves, we run through the meetings, respond to messages, mid conversations, juggle deadlines, and in between all of this, we forget to breathe. In our rush to keep up, we forget to show up. We are in a world where being on is constant, where deadlines are unending, where technology, which was meant to give us free time, has eventually ended up stealing what was ours, and that's our time. So here's the question: how can we stop rushing and start noticing? How can we ensure that we are here in the moment in a world which is constantly pulling us everywhere but here? To understand this and to help overcome the challenges that we have in ensuring our presence in the movement, in ensuring that we are not snatching our time but managing it in a way that it remains ours. I have with me two very exciting seasoned coaches on the show today. No surprise to guess Olivia. Uh, she's a seasoned coach, a master coach, in fact, has been practicing coaching for decades. Olivia is also co-author on the book that we have done, Boss versus Coach. You can see on her screensaver. Olivia, would you like to introduce the guest tonight?
So Lucy Dakin and I have been working together for, well, quite some years now, and actually have a company together, Big Thinking Space. And we are both master coaches, and we are both absolutely dedicated to bringing humanity to the workspace and to life. And so it's a real pleasure to have her talking on this particular topic, because I know that it's one that's close to her heart and something that she has a great number of stories on and things to say. So Lucy, lovely to have you in our space. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome,
It's
Lucy.
a pleasure to be here and to be part of the community.
So, Lucy, just picking from the thought, how can we remain present in the moment in a world which is constantly pulling us everywhere? How can we do that?
Yeah, and I'm certainly no expert in being present, but what I can share is my own journey to mindfulness, meditation, and becoming more present, and specifically within coaching. And so, a number of years ago now, I want to say about 10 years ago, I was working hard, trying to do too many things at the same time, and it really wasn't working for me. So a colleague of mine said, "Hey Lucy, have you ever tried mindfulness meditation?" And at the time, I wasn't very into that kind of way of being. I wasn't particularly interested in anything that was about anything to do with mindfulness and meditation. But I thought, hey, what's the worst that could happen if I give this a go? And so I got into a app called Headspace, where they just share mindfulness, meditation, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour of meditation. And I started off with small bites, started off with a mindful minute, and then I got into longer periods of being able to sit in a meditative space where I wasn't thinking about anything particularly. I was just kind of observing thoughts. And that's one of the things that I learned in mindfulness and meditation. And what that gave me was a sense of peace, calm, and groundedness in the way that I was working. And then from there, really it's become a daily practice. So I started off with a minute and now I practice every day for 20 minutes. And one of the things that struck me in that learning journey was Buddhism and the way that Buddhists talk about if you're super busy, you should practice meditation for 20 minutes. And if you're really, really busy, you should practice for an hour. And that kind of struck me as this could really help anyone and everyone. It's about connecting with the breath, slowing the thoughts down, being able to be in that present moment and being here now. And it certainly helps me be a more effective coach, a more effective facilitator, and more effective in business and more effective just in general life. I think I'm a better person overall by being able to park what was happening earlier in the day, not be thinking about what's happening next, and just being here now. So that's a little bit of a story rather than me being an expert in this room, because I think that's important to note that we could all practice this and it could start with just a minute.
Thanks, Lucy. Olivia, your take on this. How can we be present in a world that's constantly pulling us?
Well, I mean, I guess the first thing is the why. I mean, does it actually matter? And science is increasingly pointing to how much it does. And it's not just that our work is busy and our lives are busy, but when we're not busy doing that, most of us are tucked into one of these. And the brain just wasn't designed to be always on. It needs space to wander. We have a conscious and a subconscious, and both of them have jobs to do. But that doesn't mean being busy like we think jobs are. Sometimes our best thinking can be done when we're not thinking about something. I mean, everyone knows what it's like. You've got a really tricky thing to think about. When you walk away from it and do something else, ideas start to come. And that's how the brain best works. And we need time to focus. And we're losing our ability to focus as a species, mostly thanks to digital technology and being too busy. Our brains are just tired. What I loved about what Lucy was saying is it could just be a minute. If you just stopped for 1 minute and breathe, I'd encourage everybody to try that. Just as simple as that. Just let your thoughts drift for 1 minute and just breathe. Because even if all you're doing is the breathing and your brain is still a bit busy, again, a lot of us only breathe very lightly into the top of our lungs. And so just having a good deep breath and just calming down. I haven't met anyone yet who said, I felt worse for having a good breathe for a minute. So, I think there's so much benefit in doing it. And the other thing you'll find is, just have a little look around the internet. There's so many different ways of doing this. It isn't necessarily the Buddhist mindful meditation. Some people go for a walk or go for a run or, I don't know, chop vegetables or sew or anything you like. It's just finding a space where you're not in the thinking in other people's worlds and you just drift into your own. And the health benefits are huge. So anyone could try it. And what's wrong with just trying?
So, Lucy, but I understand, and I've been told by a couple of friends and colleagues that, one of the biggest fear one carries to being with oneself is the fear of facing things that you have been ignoring. Because when you are in silence and stillness, then you get to witness, you get to face things that you want to ignore, and that's why you remain yourself in a busy mode. How much of it is true, and is it really a fear, or is it what we have created for ourselves?
Well, I think there is truth in that when you do take that time to be still and be with your own thoughts, particularly if you haven't really done much self-reflection, introspection, work on yourself, maybe in coaching or even in a therapy space, that things will start to surface, things that maybe we've been ignoring and not focusing on might be present there. And at the same time, isn't that a beautiful thing that maybe we could park in the moment if we're practicing mindfulness or breathing in a deep way for a minute, and then something bubbles up for us that maybe just sits tucked away in a box in our brain, that maybe we could do something with that, particularly in the coaching space. So that's where I would go with that. I've had coaches that I have introduced mindfulness meditation to be more present to, and they have shared things that have been going on in the backs of their minds. And it's almost like there's first the whisper, then there's a knock at the door, and then there's the thunder. And it's all for me, certainly in the coaching space, around how do we support people be better versions of themselves. And if there are things that people are avoiding in themselves. Maybe that's something to work on.
Agreed. Olivia, I personally have experienced that, in our rush to remain productive all the time, in our rush to be available for the world, we end up losing on a lot of connections, relationships, on our health, and eventually gain nothing. But again, it's a world which demands you to be constantly on. So, how to make this choice of being with yourself or being available with others all the time?
Well, it's an interesting thing actually, because I think the more available you are to yourself, the more available you are to others. If I'm really up in my head and I've got tons of things going on, and you go, "Hey, Olivia, we've got this thing to talk about," I'm not hearing you. My head's still busy with all the stuff going on the inside. So actually, how productive am I if my brain is always just constantly on and struggling with thoughts that it's wrestling with? So actually taking a bit of time to breathe, taking a bit of time to notice someone else, just slowing down is a great way to be more effective, because it's a bit, I always think, if you're driving a car, if you have more perspective, you're like looking at the horizon, you can see what's going on in the whole road and you can understand more perspective. If you just stared at the bonnet of the car, or worse still, the windscreen, then you would crash almost immediately, because you don't have that perspective. All you've got is this very tight world. So I think it's better for us. I think it's also for the people that we want to connect with, that we just take a minute. And who hasn't got a minute?
Agreed. So, both for Lucy and Olivia, there are a lot of followers of Boss versus Coach, which are young professionals, aspiring coaches, also seasoned professionals, and those who are managing leadership positions. What is the one piece of advice you both would like to share for them to start practicing being in the moment? Because, as I said in the beginning, in our rush to keep up, we often forget to show up. So what is the piece of advice you would like to share to the viewers so that they can also practice mindfulness? They can also make the best of the moment they are in. You see, and then Olivia.
Yeah, I think one piece of advice or one thing that you could do in mindfulness or meditation is just focusing on the breath. So whether it's box breathing, where you do 4 breaths in, hold for 4 breaths, and let that go for 4 breaths, and you do a few rounds of that, or whether it is just really focusing in for a minute and thinking about your thoughts and feelings as clouds drifting on by on a blue sky, that see it as a superpower, because not many people are present and in the moment. And if you're a young professional, or you're an aspiring coach, or you just want to be more human, if you can be in that present moment, you're more agile and you are the change agent in that moment. And your behavioral flexibility, your agility in that moment can provide many opportunities. So I would see it as a superpower and something to just experiment with, even if it's just for a minute, and see where it takes you.
I'd say put this down just for a bit every day. And there's some really interesting research that if your phone's on and near you, even if it's turned down, it is distracting your brain. So it's tiring you out and it's distracting from the conversation you're having. So don't just sort of leave it in your pocket buzzing away. Put it in a different room just for 1 hour a day. Don't keep looking at it. And you will start to appreciate how nice it is. Actually, to start with, it drives you crazy because you spend the whole time going, have I got people trying to talk to me? But when you actually just let that go, knowing it's just for 1 hour or even half an hour, you can start to enjoy. As Lucy said, you can just breathe just for 1 minute. without doing anything else. And I think that the whole hustle culture is really not okay for ourselves, but also for each other, for our connections. And actually, I see increasingly people are saying this all over the place. It's like, that there isn't enough space just to be ourselves. So I'd say then take it, because who else is going to help you?
Absolutely. And I have been practicing this, Olivia, for last many weeks now, that putting my phone away at least for an hour in a day. So I'm feeling it very peaceful, relaxing. I'm not sure about those whose calls I've been missing. So they must be cursing and abusing me. And after seeing this show, they will come to know why this idiot is not picking the phone. So, nevertheless, it's very exciting and interesting. And one thing is there, that the world will constantly remain on. The messages will keep coming. Deadlines will remain. It's a choice that we need to make on how to being in the moment we wish to be. Because being present is not doesn't mean escaping life. It is finally arriving into it. On that note, thank you, Lucy, and thank you, Olivia, for sharing such exciting thoughts and for such a beautiful conversation. I look forward to having more of you, Lucy, on the show. And please keep supporting, please keep liking Boss versus Coach. Share your comments and feedback. Our book is on Amazon. Go pick it up and be the one you wish to be. On that note, thank you. Bye bye. Take care.
Thanks both. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.